Thank you very much, and hello everyone, and thank you for joining the webinar, and thank you very much for the introduction. So we will be talking today about safeguarding your advertising revenue with a Google-certified CMP. I'm sure everyone knows what is CMP, but I'll just mention. So CMP stands for the Content Management Platform, which Cookiebot by User-Centric is. If you're an agency or a user managing Google services for your customers, then you will be interested in today's presentation. We are going to do a little bit of a deep dive into what this means for you and for your customers, how you can help your customers be compliant with the recent regulations, and how you can benefit from it by joining Cookiebot CMP by User-Centric's partner program. So, there was already an introduction, but we will also say with Richard a couple of words about ourselves. So I'm Marina, partner manager at Cookiebot by User-Centrics. I'm taking care of the Cookiebot resellers, our partners, helping companies, first of all, to join the partner program and that get going with our product. So together with my colleague Richard, we will conduct today's webinar. And Richard, if you want to say a couple of words.
Yeah, my name's Richard. I'm the tech support lead. So that basically means that whenever support really runs out of ideas, I have to step in and figure out what's going on. So I know a little bit about everything, and yeah, I hope to share some of that with you today.
Great, thank you, Richard. Okay, so why are we all here today? So the main reasons are if you're an agency or if you use any Google services, you need to help your customers and your own website to protect the advertising revenue and data from the website that you have. Then you will need to make changes to certain parts of the website and integrations to make sure that your customers yourself can use Google services from March onwards. The world is changing, we all know about that, and yeah, we will discuss it today. The good news is that both our products, Cookiebot and User-Centrics, are Google certified CMPs, so you're in good hands if you're using our solutions. If you're an agency and you want to help your customers, you can become a partner, a reseller of Cookiebot. I will tell you more about that. If you're a user of Google services and you need help to implement a CMP solution, our partners Measurements will be happy to help you with the changes and implementation of Cookiebot. So this is our agenda for today. We will discuss partnering with Cookiebot CMP to provide seamless and easy integration of Google Consent Mode V2 to your customers. Get your slice of the pie with the Cookiebot CMP reseller program. Then Richard will take over and will tell you how to implement Cookiebot with Google Consent Mode, general implementation via Google Tag Manager, and for WordPress websites. So as Richard is very experienced tech support lead, he will go into all details of Google Consent Mode. I'm sure it will be interesting for you, so stay tuned. Also, we will have time for the Q&A. In the meantime, feel free to post your questions in the Q&A button, and we will follow up at the end of the webinar. So a big change is coming to the market. I'm sure we all know about that. Now responsibility is moved from the users to the big tech players. You can see those tech players here on the screen. So it's Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, ByteDance, and Meta. And that's a good thing. Now, not only website owners have to be compliant, but also the big tech players. You're all aware of different regulations in different parts of the world. There are different regulations in the US, states, Europe, and different local privacy regulations. Like, for example, in Switzerland, there is an FADP regulation. They're all coming into market. Big changes are coming to market with the Digital Markets Act. Everybody's data is controlled by those 6 big tech players. What is happening? From the middle of March, if you or your customers are using or still want to use Google Ads, Facebook Ads, TikTok, and so on, you will need to make changes to your website to be able to continue using them. If you haven't thought about it, think about it now. It is happening very soon. It's already end of February, and there's not much time left, and Richard will be talking about that soon. If you have questions, yes, please feel free to ask them. So, but why I am here, I am going to tell you about partner program and how you can join our partner program and what are the benefits of being a partner with the Google-certified CMP. So, why you need to choose Cookiebot? We are in the market from 2012. We have one of the best scanners. It identifies and all cookies and trackers that there are. It is one of the best solutions, fully updated with all regulations. We are also very proud of our partners. We have more than 3,500 partners all over the world. And with all changes in the market, recently we can see that Cookiebot is the first choice for companies when it comes to easy to use, easy to implement, and easy to customize solution. There are only 2 scripts that you can copy paste to implement Cookiebot. Our partners get priority in the support queue, and there are dedicated partner managers for our partners. So you can join the partner program even today. I will tell you how you can do that soon. Cookiebot CMP is the most used solution for the compliant use of cookies and online tracking. These are just some feedback from our partners. We often interact with our partners, have quarterly meetings, and make case studies with them. You can see that lots of websites use Cookiebot, and we manage more than 13 billion user consents. What are the benefits of joining the reseller program? So you can get commission, up to 40% commission, and you can provide discounts to your customers. You can also add a new service to your portfolio and offer the best in-class solution. So that's a big advantage. You can access helpful partner content and share it with your customers, any webinar recordings, different playbooks, anything that might be useful for your customers. And now, since it's mandatory to use Google-certified CMP, Cookiebot would be the best choice for you. So now we're moving to the reseller program itself. Just worth mentioning that joining the reseller program is for free. There are no obligations on how many customers you should bring, and there are no fees. You just join the program, and you can use these 2 models that you see on the screen. On the left-hand side, there is a wholesale model. That's when you are responsible for the customer. You take care of the invoicing, and only you have access to the account. We send you the invoice monthly and charge you with a 20% discount. How much you charge your customer, we don't care. You can add it to one of your services, like a bundle of services, but we will charge you with a 20% discount. On the right-hand side is the retail model, which tends to be the more popular model. You invite your customers to create a Cookiebot user link. They pay the subscription. Both you and your customer have access to the account. You get 40% commission first 3 years, and then it's 20%, and your customer pays for the subscription. As a reseller, you can use both of those models. There is no need to decide right away. You can choose between one or another per customer. Depends on what relationship you have with the customer, and you can combine those 2 models. How to join the reseller program? So you can see there is a QR code, so you can scan it here. It will be later in the presentation as well. There are 3 steps. So first step is to fill out your contact details. then you need to create a Cookiebot user account. If you have one already, it is fine. You can just jump to step 3 and fill out the reseller application form. If you don't have it, so just create a Cookiebot user account. You need to upgrade it to premium. Just by default, you need to have a premium account to be able to join the reseller program. You will not pay anything for it. You just, by default, that's the rule. And then you fill out the reseller application form and send an application, and it will take a bit of time for us to accept it. And then you can use all the benefits of being a reseller. Also, every reseller, when they sign up and they become partners, they will have access to the partner portal. You can see it on the screen. And the partner portal is a platform where partner can do anything. There is lots of content and resources that you can share with your customers. You can get in touch with support. You can create quote requests, and you can get in touch with your Cookiebot partner manager. Also, you can become a certified partner. Each reseller of Cookiebot by User-Centrics can become a certified partner by taking a test. It's a very quick and easy test. You can see here on the screen, we will give you a certification that you can share on LinkedIn. Also, you will have a certified partner badge, so you can share it on LinkedIn, on your website, or in your email. It's quite popular. We have lots of resellers doing the certification. As for the pricing, we define prices by the number of subpages, as it was mentioned before. There is a free subscription. It is compliant. It has all features to set up a compliant banner, but it is limited in functionality. It's for the smaller websites. Then there are premium subscriptions, small, medium, and large. So if you use a wholesale model with your customer, you will be getting a 20% discount. And in the retail model, your customer is paying for the subscription, and you get 40% commission back first 3 years, and then it's 20%. Also, in the retail model, you can give your customer discount. So they have 5–10% discount. Here on the slide, I just wanted to show you how the Cookiebot manager looks like. It's very easy, very straightforward. You can use user interface in 6 languages, but the banner itself and cookie declaration, you can have it in 46 languages. Also, I wanted to show you how the retail model looks like, because it's the most popular one, and I wanted to show you how it looks like from the backend manager. So each reseller have the button called Customers here on top. You can invite your customer to create a Cookiebot user account. You can send out as many invitations as you want. You can see I have 3 customers, and the advantage of the retail model is that you have access at any time to your customer's account. You do not need to know their login or password or any verification code. You can just go to your customer section, click on your customer, and you will impersonate their account. Also, each customer has their own unique link. You can see it on the top here. You can share that link on, you can add it to your newsletter, to the website, to LinkedIn. And if your customer clicks on that link and uses it to create a Cookiebot user account, they will become customers under your partner account. So that means you will be able to have access to the account, to help them out, to help with the customization, implementation, and also you will start getting commission. These are just some examples of the banners that our resellers created. We have standard banners with the templates that you can play around, but we also have a customized banner option that you can customize and create banner yourself. We have some really creative resellers sometimes creating very funny and interesting banners, but compliant. And also worth mentioning that as a reseller, as a partner of Cookiebot, you can have as many trial periods as you want, 14-day free trial with all premium features. you can test Cookiebot on your customer's website and just play around and see and implement it. So just use that opportunity to have a free trial before you start paying for the subscription. So that's it about the partner program. If you're interested, please join. On the right-hand side, there is a QR code. You can just scan it and join the reseller program. If you're a customer and you still want to use Google services and you want to be compliant, our partner measurement minds will be happy to help you. You can scan QR code here on the left-hand side, and they will help you with the Cookiebot implementation. Thank you. So given a word to Richard.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to talk a little bit about Google Consent Mode, which is probably on everyone's mind right now. It's a super hot topic, as we can see from our incoming support requests. I'm going to talk about how to implement it via, specifically for Cookiebot, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some best practices and pitfalls. So, consent mode. Now, I'm not going to read this slide to you because I don't like I don't like doing that. Instead, I'm going to sort of explain to you what consent mode actually does and why it's so important. So as Marina explained earlier, that now these big six players are all required to ensure that consent is collected. And to do that, you, of course, need to have some sort of a standard that you agree upon. So in the case of Google, which is the one we'll be focusing on, because, well, we know most about that one. We've seen a little bit of movement for Microsoft, specifically for LinkedIn, a little bit about Meta, but Google seems to really be leading the charge. So getting back to like the unified standard, basically what Google needs is it needs to know consent data, and it needs to know it in a format that it understands. So Cookiebot does it in a specific way, and our sister product, if you can call that, user-centric CMP, it does it in another way, and our competitors do it even in another way. And so instead of Google services having to sort of like know all of these standards and languages, it just has one standard, and that's called consent mode. It correlates very, very well with Cookiebot because it's based on storage permissions, and with version 2, which I will get to in just a second, there's some additional information, but it was originally completely focused on storage types, which correlates with cookie categories. So we have them mapped to the categories in Cookiebot. So if you have ad storage, that's called marketing in Cookiebot, and if you have analytical storage, that's statistics, and preferences is the other ones. Next slide, please. So the difference between version 1 and 2 is very, very small. Basically, there's just two new extra permissions, which are add user data and add personalization. The way I look at it is just, I like to simplify things. Add user data is, am I allowed to collect your data? And add personalization is, am I allowed to use this personalized data? Analytic storage and ad storage, which were always there since the beginning of consent mode, are essentially cookies. Storage is basically a synonym for cookies and similar technologies. We at Cookiebot, we use cookies as an umbrella term. We just mean browser storage. It's essentially the same thing. So next slide, please. So to get it working, now we realize that this is no hobby of yours. Consent is not something that you're probably particularly keen on becoming experts in. So we decided, okay, let's make this super duper easy. So if you're on WordPress, make sure you use our plugin and just toggle it on. And as long as you have the latest version, you'll have consent mode enabled. Don't have to do anything about it. It will just automatically register the default settings to Google, which will be like opted out for everything, which is the safe way. And then according to what the user chooses on the banner, Cookiebot will send these consent mode signals to Google, and it will update the services. That either means in basic mode that the tag will run, or in advanced mode that the tag will gain some additional features, specifically with ad personalization. In Google Tag Manager, it's a similar deal. You just make sure you get our Cookiebot CMP tag, and you can just basically toggle it on. You'll have a little bit of more flexibility in terms of what sort of settings you want to set granted and default by granted and denied by default. And you can even set this on regions. So let's say you have visitors from the US and you want to by default opt in. So you'll grant analytical storage and you'll grant ad storage. you can do that. So one set of rules for, yeah, different geo-regions. The inline implementation is the more difficult one, but it's not the end of the world. It basically requires you to take a small script snippet and inject it before you load GTag or Google Tag Manager. So because that is a little bit more difficult, I've provided a link here, and you can scan the QR code in the right-hand corner, sorry. That will take you to the guide that has that newest version of the script. So a little bit about best practices. I've also heard our previous speaker going a little bit into this with auto blocking and why that could give some issues, and that's what I'm going to be going into right here. So for that, we have the 6 commandments of cookie blocking. Now, these are not actual laws; they're just more sort of like, okay, things. If you do them, then you're going to have a good time. If you ignore them, you're definitely not going to have a good time. So let's start with the first commandment. Thou shalt load Cookiebot first. Now, why is that important? If you skip the slide, then there's actually like a little graphic. There we go. Worked very hard on that. So the way I like to explain this is, imagine you have a nightclub, very popular, and there's all sorts of guests coming in there, and some of them are troublemakers, and we want to make sure that these guys don't get in there. And to make sure of that, then we have a bouncer, and that bouncer is called Cookiebot. That bouncer needs to be in front of the door before guests start showing up, because essentially, if people have already gone into the door and the bouncer's not there yet, then we can't be sure that the unwanted guests didn't get in. So yeah, this is like the what I think from a consent point of view is the important part. But there's also a little caveat that the way auto blocking works is that it basically takes over the rendering of your page, and it goes through every element one by one and checks if you're on a blacklist. And if you are, then it will prevent the elements from loading. Now that is very important to know, because people seem to believe that the way cookie blocking works is that we somehow magically intercept these cookies, but that's not technically possible. So what we do instead is we prevent the service that sets the cookie from loading. And if that, yeah, if you start changing the way things load, then dependencies can break, and then scripts can fail. So what we always say is, this is actually the first thing I always look at. Whenever there's an issue, people are saying like, oh, my website is not compliant, or their website breaks, then the first thing I always check is like, does Cookiebot load first? If that's a no, then let's start there, and then I'm not even going to look at other issues until that's fixed. So that's the first and foremost. That's also why it's the first commandment. It is absolutely essential. Bundles, also a very important thing. So, like I just explained, we block services or scripts, iframes, that sort of thing, pixels. Now, if you have a website that puts every single service in one bundle, lumps them all together, then that entire bundle will be blocked prior consent, because we need permission to load this. So let's say that you have critical functionality, like let's say you have a website with a shop, and the shopping cart functionality is within that bundle, but there's also a bunch of advertising and a bunch of marketing scripts in there. We would need to block them, because if we don't, we're breaking the law. But if we do, we're breaking your website. And this is something that has always been sort of like a coin toss. Like what do we do here? Do we allow you to break the law, or do we allow you, or do we allow your website to go to pieces? Now, both are obviously not great, but we assume that if you have our solution to avoid fines, then the best solution is to make sure that you adhere to the law. So if you at all can, like, make sure that critical functionality and optional functionality are not within the same bundle. We even prefer like moving anything that has anything to do with ads or analytics. Just move it to Google Tag Manager. It is a fantastic system. I cannot praise it highly enough. It's graphic. It's sexy. It just works. So move all your optional stuff in there, and then let consent mode take care of the rest. So then you don't need any developers or hardcore coding knowledge. It just works. So on to the third commandment. What could possibly be wrong with speed optimizing? Well, a lot of websites, because Core Web Vitals is a thing. We want to make sure that our websites are like in tip-top condition so they can score higher on the search results, so people click on our websites and we can yeah, make money. So what we sometimes see, particularly with WordPress, is the speed optimizing plugins, and they optimize speed using some methods that can really mess with our auto blocking functionality, but also our the non-auto blocking functionality. What they tend to do is either load Cookiebot asynchronous, which basically means that as soon as Cookiebot starts loading, so let's say for argument's sake, it still loads first, but as it is loading is asynchronous, the other scripts are also allowed to load. So basically, you could, like, if we take the bouncer analogy again, that while this guy is moving towards the door, people are already rushing into the door, and then it becomes sort of like a race. Like, do we get there first, or do the unwanted people get there first? And deferred makes it actually even worse. If you defer loading, it basically means you delay it until the website is pretty much already done loading. And then it becomes anyone's guess when this bouncer actually showed up and when the other people show up. And that's just a level of yeah, insecurity you really don't want. So that's one thing. But something else that these things do is they tend to want to self-host the file, because then you don't have to fetch it from our servers every time. Now that's generally a bad idea, because we continuously push fixes, updates, all kinds of things. So you and we don't really use versioning. So you just want to make sure that you get the latest version. And also, it makes a lot of references. It gets your the instructions for the auto blocker. It gets a whole bunch of external files, and it refers to its own local host. So if that is not consent.cookiebot.com or consent.cookiebot.eu, things will start breaking. So speed optimizer, like, if you can configure it to leave Cookiebot alone, perfectly fine. If not, just don't do it. Your website is fast enough as it is. It's microseconds we're talking about, maybe not even. This is a little bit an extension of what the previous speaker was talking about. Why would you actually want to go through the trouble of manually marking up? Now, as it says on the slide, auto blocking is meant to be convenient. So the very second it stops doing that, you should just not use it. It's a great feature. When it got introduced, I was super excited, and then the tickets started coming. Because what it can do, like I said, if it can block some essential functionality, because it doesn't have any idea of, okay, is this actually critical for the website or not? It just looks, hey, it says this tracker, I'm going to block it. So what we sometimes see is you can mark up scripts so the auto blocker leaves it alone. And what we've sometimes seen is that the auto blocker's instructions only want to block 4, 5 services maybe, but then 40 or 50 scripts have been manually marked up. So you could have sufficed by just marking up these 4 or 5 services, and instead you almost completely rewrote your entire source code to make sure the auto blocking works. So what I always tell my guys in support, guys and girls actually, what I tell them is, if you look at the instructions and you can see fewer entries than that the person has ignored, do whatever you can to convince them not to use auto blocking anymore. It's not the better feature. You're not missing out if you're not using it. It's convenient until it isn't. So and also you can combine the two. Like, if you want to make sure that certain scripts are loaded under certain conditions and you don't want to be dependent on whatever our scanner finds, you can apply manual markup. The scanner will respect that, and it will not try to change it. It will not try to override it. What you say goes. So up to the next point. This is also one I get almost daily. Like, what should I do? What is best? Well, there is no best solution. There's convenience, and there's what works for you. So if you, for example, have a WordPress website, I would always use the plugin, because then suddenly you don't have to mess with code. You can just switch some toggles on and off. It's an environment you're familiar with, and it takes care of all these things. Like, okay, it will ensure that Cookiebot loads first, and it will ensure that the consent mode script will load before Google Time Manager. It will do all these things for you. It's so, rule of thumb, if you have WordPress, use our plugin. As a matter of fact, if your platform has a Cookiebot plugin, it's probably a fantastic idea to use it, and don't bother with manual hocus pocus. The auto blocker is like, okay, and there are cases when besides the convenience, not every platform allows you to actually mark up scripts. So if you know that your website is one of those where you cannot directly go in and mark up mark up the website's source code. These are things like website builders, like Squarespace, Wix. There's a whole bunch. In those cases, auto blocking might be very good because you might not be able to get there, but it can. And finally, of course, can you code? If you exclusively work with Google Tag Manager and don't really know HTML and CSS and JavaScript, then don't bother. Just use Google Tag Manager. It is fantastic with it. We've done a lot of work to make sure that Cookiebot and GTM are really, really good friends. So by all means, use that. And like I've also noticed, like every single question I've seen dozens and dozens of times before. And whenever I see something being asked more than 3 times, I immediately create documentation for it. So it's always a great idea to if you get stuck and you're not particularly keen on getting in touch with support or these, the kind of the self-help type, which I, for example, am, then check out Cookiebot, support.cookiebot.com. We have tons of articles. We also have a chatbot, which I personally am not a fan of, but that's probably because I've watched too much Terminator. But there's a lot in there for you. You can provide pretty much anything there. And if you do get stuck, then you can always reach out to support. You probably will get one of my colleagues, but with a little bit of insistence, we might actually get in touch. So if there are any questions, then have away with it.
Yes, there are a couple of questions in our Q&A channel. So I'll just read it, and if Richard, you can answer them.
Yeah.
Then how can we implement Cookiebot in Shopify if we want to use custom pixel?
Shopify is a tricky one because again, this if you want to use auto blocking, you have to be really, really careful because you want to ensure that Cookiebot loads first to ensure nothing breaks, but you also want to be sure not to accidentally block, for example, the shopping basket or the sliders, that sort of thing. With custom pixel, I'm not exactly sure. I would just manually mark that one up. So implement Cookiebot using manual mode, preferably with something like Google Tag Manager, because I'm a big fan of that. And you can either load the pixel through GTM using additional consent triggers or consent event triggers, or just add if it's an image, replace the source attribute with data dash source, and then data dash cookie consent, and then it's probably marketing. So then marketing. It's probably not the best answer, sort of like in speech, because it will probably make more sense in writing. But here we are.
Thank you. Does Cookiebot provide opportunity for hybrid consent banner, intrusive type for EU and non-intrusive type for US?
Yeah, sort of. What we do have is you can build different banners and consent mechanisms for different regions. So, for example, if you want, let's start with CCPA. It was one of the first ones. You did not need to have like a GDPR style banner. So what you can do is basically build different templates and then tie them to the geo region. So if we can detect we look at your IP address. We don't store it, by the way. Very important. We look at your IP address. We see, hey, you are visiting from this region. And then we present you the banner that belongs with that region. That is definitely something we have and something I warmly recommend. Do not use a one-size-fits-all solution. It's just don't.
What is the best trigger for Google Tag after Cookiebot or both during consent initialization?
If I understand the question correctly, then you want any CMP, so also Cookiebot to use the consent initialization trigger, but nothing else. That is specifically designed for CMPs. Everything else should just be using all pages triggers. Unless you have something that you need to be applied to everything, then you'll use the initialization. But as a rule of thumb, CMP is only for consent initialization triggers.
Thank you. How are cookies assigned a category in the Cookiebot database? Can we reassign? What about cookies that have dual purpose functionality and tracking?
Yeah, so we have a library of sorts. We call it the cookie repository, and we have a whole team of people that literally do nothing else than looking at cookies all day long. They look at the ones that they see popping up more than 1,000 times. That is actually the limit. When we see a cookie more than 1,000 times, we start looking like, hey, this is something people use. And then often we actually ask the service provider. So let's say Google introduces a new cookie. We can see, hey, this always comes from a Google service. We have no idea what it does. Then our team reaches out to Google, asks, hey, what category would you say this falls into, and what is the purpose? So if we know the cookie, if we've seen it before, we will have it in our library, but you can always update that, because even though there's sort of like this general rule of thumb when it comes to categorization, let's take YouTube, for example. A YouTube video is not essential for, if I had a website, richard.com, for example, then I cannot make the argument that is a necessary tracking going on there. But on youtube.com, it is. Now, youtube.com does not use Cookiebot yet. But so yeah, there are situations when the default category just doesn't match, and then you can just override it. And we will respect that. We will not try to put it back to what it was. Yeah.
Good. Question about Cookiebot support. Cookiebot customer support takes a long time to respond, if at all. We are paid customers, and it takes more than 4 or 5 days if they respond.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for me to jump in on that one?
Sure.
So, I mean, if this is for anonymous attendee, well, one solution there is to use a partner that may be faster at responding, and we can also provide answers that Cookiebot officially can't, like, say, and also so for instance, a couple of two good examples. Ajax sites are particularly fiddly to kind of do. And that's one where you really want to get an external partner to cover. Also, there's some little tweaks you might want to do to the banner, either custom CSS or like hiding the Cookiebot logo in the banner. Those are things that like official Cookiebot support can't say, but we can provide assistance on. Richard, just one on just reading the comment about Shopify. That's a question that we've been asked as well, and I posted two possible options. One, using auto block if they're on Shopify Plus and they can edit the global header, not within a nested iframe, or there is a Shopify consent API, and it's kind of next on my list is to task the developer to build that. So watch this space on that one. But yeah, I hear the person's sort of concern on that. Just one little thing on with WordPress. The GTM for WordPress plugin has literally been updated last month with consent mode support and the tick box for kind of whitelisting of the GTM.JavaScript file as a necessary tag. So actually, it's for us, we find if they're not using autoblock, which they shouldn't be, sometimes we find it easier to use GTM for WordPress, which has a nice kind of integration with Cookiebot.
Yeah. Excellent points. Yeah. I mean, there's no way around. Right now, we do have very long response times for support. We're not proud of this, but we are a little bit victims of our own success. We get a humongous influx. So yeah, when you can use our resellers. They and as Phil also pointed out, Cookiebot support will, well, it sounds bad, but refuse to help you build a custom banner, because that there's legal ramifications. But resellers can make some fantastic tools and have the resources to help you. So when you feel like, okay, our Cookiebot support is a little too slow for my taste, definitely make sure of our resellers. We have really good ones. Shopify, also very good point. I investigated this a while back, and yeah, you can edit the liquid.header, I think the file was, where you can sort of like direct inject it. And yeah, they do have a consent API. I haven't looked at it recently, but back when I was fiddling with it, I didn't really like. It seemed that it just changed the cookie from persistent to being session based, and that's not good enough for GDPR. So this is definitely something we can collaborate on, and I'm very interested in hearing more about. When it comes to GTM for WordPress, I've never used it myself. I'll admit that, but considering how often I see it, it must really be the preferred plugin. And if it works well with our solution, then yeah, there's no reason not to use it. I mean, our own plugin does allow you to implement not WordPress, GCM. But yeah, it's very basic. It's basically just put the code in there and then we'll inject the script, but you can't really do anything besides that. So again, you can use whatever works best for you. And I now have something to look into.
I'm happy to provide some examples of that. But on the global header, it's only the paid Shopify Plus where you can edit the global header, especially in the checkout. So that unfortunately kind of restricts it to there is a need for a module, especially if they're not on Shopify Plus. They're using like the native Google Shopping connector or Facebook connector. I wonder if okay, so I'll just let you take over, Richard and Marina.
Thank you. So there is a question about TCF. So could you speak a little bit about TCF and specifically how the Cookiebot CMP handles the update?
Yeah. Well, we support it. Basically, if you implement TCF via our CMP, then there is nothing before version 2.2. If you implement it, you will have version 2.2. It will also make some overrides on your existing banner if you have a standard banner. So a lot of questions we get is like, hey, now suddenly I see that we're sharing with X amount of partners, and if you haven't configured it at all, that will be in the 800s. So essentially, without getting too technical about it, the update happened automatically. We just basically transferred and we informed our customers like the old consent strings that TCF generates, these are now invalid. So you should trigger a consent renewal. You can do that in the Cookiebot backend. So you basically invalidate all existing consents and ask for a new one. Yeah, I don't know how far I should go into TCF because it's a topic of its own. Suffice to say, we do support it, and it's completely version 2.2 compliant, and we have fantastic help center articles that I shared a link to earlier. Like these are, I'm quite proud of those because they've been rewritten quite a few times by myself.
Yeah. How to configure a consent banner for GDPR and another for LGPD for the same domain?
Okay, yeah, so essentially it depends a little bit on how you implement Cookiebot, but in general, what you always have to do is you have to create one domain group for each banner configuration. So they're basically going to be like placeholders for a banner configuration. You will only add domains to one of them because you don't want to get billed for them twice. There's no point in doing that. And then in WordPress, you can just add lines that basically say, okay, this region in this case that would be Brazil. In Brazil, you use the serial number that belongs to this domain group, and in the default case, which I would always be use for Europe, you would use this serial number. So essentially, you assign the serial number of the domain group that holds your configuration depending on the region. And I hope that wasn't too abstract.
I think it is clear. We also have the guide on that in our help center, so feel free to have a look. Another question. Yesterday requested the quote, get response in a couple hours with error. Domain isn't correct, which isn't true. I can open the site from Cookiebot email. Then I write to support, still no response. How can I check which pricing plan is right for me? Subpages sound unclear.
Yeah. If our scanner for any reason is unable to approach the domain, that can be anything, because the way the scanner works, it could look a little bit like a DOS attack, because what it does, it sends a whole bunch of requests and it starts fiddling with your website. It's basically like a bot that sends a whole bunch of requests, and that could look like an attack. So if you have a firewall that is configured a little bit aggressively, it will keep it out, and then basically the quote will come back with saying like, no, okay, we couldn't do it. So no result. In terms of what subscription plan, it's assigned based on the size. So if you have less than 350 pages, you generally know how large your website is. If you have less than 350, you'll be in the small. If you are between 350 and 3,500, you'll be in the medium. And if you're over that, so if you're 3,000 or 3,500 or more, you will be automatically assigned large. So you don't actually have to do any thinking in that regard. The only time you're actually presented with a choice is if you're below 50, and then you get the choice. Do you want to be a free subscriber with the with the limitations that are applied to that, or do you still want the premium functionality, which allows a lot more customization, some additional features? But generally, it's just if you sign up, it will determine these things by itself. It's just a numbers game. And on cookiebot.com/en/pricing, you can see the overview, and you can also order a scan from here. But okay, that obviously didn't work so well.
Yeah.
Richard, just one thing on that one. I just linked to your IP whitelist. So
Yeah.
if they're using if it's not scanning, they could ask the IT department to whitelist your sometimes the user agent can also be whitelisted
Yes.
to get around those two problems.
Excellent point. Completely forgot, but yes, we actually do have an article that lists the IP addresses that our scanner uses, and it also uses a specific user agent string that includes the word Cookiebot. And this is both for your analytical purposes, so you can filter out sort of like because it can look strange in your analytical data if the scanner's just been through your website and it literally just went through everything. It will have like you'll have a ridiculous amount of direct traffic. You'll have you'll see some strange numbers. So it's always a great idea to look at that article and either filter by our user agent if you can, or the IP addresses. The first one is the most important because we generally use that one. The other ones are fallbacks in case disaster strikes and we need to use one of our other fallbacks.
Okay, there is one last question. The monthly scanner gives a lot of direct traffic to GA4 profiles.
Yeah, that's exactly what I just mentioned. Yeah, very very common. And yeah, you would have to filter that out because we can't do anything on our end. The scanner does what the scanner does, and we've already configured it in such a way because it used to put a lot of load on servers, and people got furious at us. They're like, okay, then every month you're just almost blowing up our server. So we've already throttled it quite a bit, and doing anything we can on our end, including with the user agent string to sort of like identify, hey, this is not a real user. We're just snooping around to see what tracking you're doing. Yeah. It's filtering or nothing, I'm afraid. At least I can't think of any other options.
Richard, I've got some suggestions, but I'll send you after this. There may be some parameter flags that you could add that may allow it to go into kind of a separate route.
Oh, like UTM tracking parameter?
Not UTM specifically, but a little bit like similar to anonymized IP, as in some sort of flag that. So we had the similar thing that happened with the ChatGPT bot, where that was creating a bunch of fake traffic, and we managed to get that added to the IAB blacklist, and thus which GA4 uses. So it caused the ChatGPT bot, or Bing kind of bot in disguise, to stop getting shown in GA4. So we can actually just submit the Cookiebot user agent to the IAB list, and that would solve that problem.
That sounds interesting. I mean, yeah, let's definitely connect and iron out the details, because it is a very common issue, and if we can sort of like alleviate that for our customers, that would save them a lot of trouble and confusion.
Yeah, I'll ping you after the school.
Excellent.
So there is a question for me now. We have 50+ sites. Soon they'll start using some CMP. Can I become a partner for myself to get 40-20% discount on the volume? Yes, you can become a partner. So just go to Google Cookiebot.com resellers and become a reseller. You will have, if all your 50 customers get a premium subscription, then you will be getting 40% first 3 years and 20% afterwards for each of your customers each month. So of course, yes, we'll be happy to welcome you as a Cookiebot reseller.
I can also see something in the chat about multiple legislations. You don't pay per legislation, you pay per domain. So if you let's say you have 5 websites that we scan, then you will pay for those 5 websites, but not, for example, if you have 5 legislations for each of those 5, you won't be paying for 25 subscriptions. That would be insane, especially considering how many legislations they're popping up everywhere. So multiple legislations are at no additional fee.
I just wanted to mention for partners, I posted the link to the kind of leaderboard table, which might be useful for them to see how much commission they might be able to make. So that's kind of,
Thank you.
That's publicly sharing.
So there are no more questions in Q&A.
Richard, I had one quick question. So we've been experimenting with this consent mode monitor for instead of crawling the website, instead crawling GTM or GTM.javascript, which is the kind of compiled JavaScript file, basically unnesting that and seeing what's inside it. But we have to get the GTM account ID from the homepage of the site. Because we need that to then get, do the unnesting. Do you think have you seen any tools that can do either kind of server-side scanning or consent scoring and classification, or scoring of the GTM file itself or configuration, so slightly outside of like the cookies and the rendered code?
Well, actually, well, this is actually a little bit of peeking behind the screens, but for support, I have actually developed a tool which I call Tattletale, which basically checks flaws. So it gets the website and it actually looks for a bunch of things like, okay, is GTM implemented? Is Cookiebot loaded first? Is there any weird markup? Is there any, so it does all those things. So yeah, getting the GTM ID is fairly trivial. I can send you a code snippet that does exactly that.
Yeah, the issue we're encountering is that there's the same with the crawler, as in we're hitting the Cloudflare CDNs and getting kind of blocked on that way. But we have an option. We just enter the GTM account ID instead, so it then doesn't need to crawl. But we're after feedback on this kind of GTM consent mode grader. So if anyone wants to try it out, I've just put the link into chat. That's like totally free to use. It's very similar to the Cookiebot scanner on the homepage. And I would mention, if anyone's thinking of trying out Cookiebot, the first thing you should do would be just go to the Cookiebot homepage and enter the domain on the scanner, and it will give you a quick report or a compliance kind of summary or overview.
Yeah. I can see we've got a few extra questions again. Okay, so one of them is, does Cookiebot store somewhere yeah, we whenever somebody submits consent, we store that for up to a year. So this has both the consent ID, and you need that to identify to match the user to the consent, because we don't want any personal data sitting on our servers. So we basically record exactly what the choice was, what banner model it was, and then the consent ID. So if, let's say, you have a user that says like, I never consented, then you can ask them like, okay, check if you have a Cookiebot cookie, and if you do, there will be a consent ID in there. Supply that, and then we can match it to our files, and we can tell you exactly at what time you did it, what banner you saw, which buttons you pushed. So yeah, we do store consents, and then after a year we clear them, because consent Cookiebot consent, it works for up to a year. What is your view on Google's conversion modeling? Looks to me like this should be required consent for Google to receive these signals. Oof. Okay, so I can't go into sort of like whether it's legal or not. But I can give you my personal view on it. So like this is me, Richard, personally, not speaking on behalf of User-Centrics. I believe that Google has probably had their best lawyers look at this and ensure that they will not be risking millions and millions of dollars of fines. So I assume that they've legally proved this and make sure that, yeah, you can do the conversion modeling without consent. That being said, I have no idea. I do get the question a lot about how it's, you know, is this legal? Is this okay? And I usually just give very, very evasive answers, which I've just done as well. So I assume it's legal.
If I could jump in, Richard, on that one, we had a large enterprise client that the DPO officer wouldn't allow them to use advanced mode. So they had to use basic mode, which is not great because, you know, CPAs are going to be 20% lower, and it's just really bad for the marketing agency or the Google Ads agency. The only thing that they could do, which made things a little bit easier, was actually change their GTM account into basic mode by adding the categories, you know, ad storage and analytics storage, etc., and the two new ones into the additional fields. So later, if the DPO decided to change their mind or allow in certain regions like the UK, at least they could turn it on in those regions. So it's not an ideal solution, but it's better than like no 20% uplift or no modeling.
Yeah, it actually also reminds me that I've actually forgot to mention that. Like a lot of people would probably be wondering, like, what is basic consent mode or what's advanced consent mode? And to make this really, really simple, if you use basic consent mode, then you require consent for the service to run at all. So in the case of, for example, Google Ads, it will just not load until a user has actively consented and says, okay, I'm cool with this, and then it will load. That's basic mode. Advanced mode basically means that the service will always load, regardless of what the user has chosen or if they've made a choice at all. It will just not be allowed to use personal data. It will have some restrictions in terms of being able to use cookies. So that is sort of like, I've always wondered myself whether or not that is legal. If you are even in the slightest doubt and you are somewhat nervous of getting fines, then always use basic consent mode. Also, if you're passionate about people's privacy and choice, basic mode is the way to go. It doesn't sound as sexy as advanced mode, but it is the safer, and you can be sure that that is legal.
Yeah, I think that the problem it causes though is the kind of a possible kind of step change, as in, let's say they were on advanced mode before and they drop to basic mode, then it's going to make the ad agency it's going to look a lot worse.
Yeah,
because it's you know, the bar has moved.
yeah, obviously. I mean, that if yeah, you will likely see a decrease in revenue if you go for basic mode. But so it's again, we never advise people on what model to do, because it's difficult. So I would definitely say, okay, talk to your DPO, talk to your legal counselor. Make sure that you choose the model that is right for you. And it's also like in every country, there's, even within GDPR, a lot of countries have their own small little. For example, Italy must have that little check or a close logo on the upper right corner. I know that the Netherlands and Germany have some specific rules. There are, yeah, make sure that you that you're on the legal side of the fence. That's all what I'd say.
Well, there's one question. Oh, oh, actually, that's the same question. Okay, Richard, I've just posted the link to the speaker survey. The speaker survey has an additional comment section in that, which people can fill in and ask you questions, and we can relay. Or there's a breakout room which people can jump to. The breakout room is on Zoom, so if people can't like watch the room and join the breakout room, it's kind of one or the other. But there will be access to the recordings. As I mentioned, so if people sign up for a Cookiebot trial account with our sort of link, we'll give you a free access to recordings via a QR code. And Richard, we've also, I've just sent in the Slack channel. We're going to give you 20 kind of login codes to give to your favorite customers, just so we don't sort of penalize existing customers. Or people can buy access to the slides recordings for £95, which is also pretty cheap. Thank you so much for doing that talk, Richard and Marina, and some really useful kind of information that you shared on there. I'm just gonna I'll as I said, I'll send the additional kind of questions through after this. I'm just looking at timings, and we're actually over on time. So I don't know if you're around to join because I think two people have actually raised their hand to ask you questions directly, Richard. So I don't know if it's worth posting your LinkedIn link into chat, or a way that they can contact you, or the support link, or the link to the support portal possibly.
Yeah, well, the link to support portal is in the presentation. I believe they get a version of that, and I will just quickly link my LinkedIn in the chat. It's super straightforward. Yes, that's the one. So scan that, and then you'll be taken to support. And I've just posted my LinkedIn in the webinar chat.
Right, I'll just give people a couple of seconds to scan that. Cool. All right. Thank you so much, Richard and Marina, for this talk, and also for sponsoring this event. We're very grateful. And yeah, I mean, we have done lots of like OneTrust and Cookiebot setups, and Cookiebot is definitely our favorite and a lot easier to use than a lot of the other kind of tools out there. And also, it's kind of more EU centric, which is obviously good. Yeah, and yeah, happy to, if any partners want questions about Cookiebot, I can give independent advice, and I'll be sort of brutally honest on a private call. All right, thanks again, everyone, and we're going to jump over to you, Chris.
Thank you, and
thank you.